morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm Alvin Brown, Mayor of Jacksonville, Florida, and Chair of U.S. Conference of Mayors Metro Export and Port Task Force. Today's Export Forum is really an extension of a national meeting we held in Jacksonville, Florida last February. During the 2 days of presentation and dialogues, mayors, Port Authority directors, trade experts addressed the challenges and opportunities for businesses throughout the country. And the meeting concluded with over 150 people from the Jacksonville business community and Mayor Verdegosa on focusing on infrastructure investment and opportunities we have as a nation to expand our ports. I really want to thank Tom Cochran for his teamwork and staff coordinating that meeting, and Dave Gatton. Let's give Tom Cochran a hand, and Dave Gatton. Dave's here, who's going to be working with us and making sure we do it right. Rest assured, increasing exports and modernizing our ports is very important for our cities. During the meeting, we released a major report entitled U.S. Metro Economies, Export, the Next Decade. And it was prepared by Global Insight, and you have a packet. I want you to make sure you get the report. It should be, you should have one if you're seated there. This is a report, a great report for you to look at. And I just want to highlight a few things in that report. One is export will account for 40% of the U.S. GDP growth over the next decade, 40%. 41 metros have the potential to achieve 70% of or more growth in export in the same period. The U.S. metro economies account for 88% of the nation's export. Now that's important for cities, and we want people to understand the value of how important port development is for the future of our growth in our cities. Another critical issue we addressed was the national ports and intermodal transportation system, which is important to expand ports and allow them to operate more effectively and efficiently was another issue we addressed, and the creation of a national freight policy, which we need so desperately to ensure that we can compete in a global economy, positioning our cities to be able to compete. Long Beach Mayor Bob Foster said it best, and I want to quote him: all various modes of transportation, water, rail, roads, and bridges must work in an efficient system, and that's our key. So as a result, Mayor Verdegosa and I co-sponsored a comprehensive export and port policy resolution, which we'll take up and address in our final session on Saturday. It calls for the creation of a freight policy, calls on Congress to use those funds that we have in a harbor maintenance fund, trust fund right now, several billion dollars that could be invested in our ports right now. And that's important, to really focus on encouraging the federal, the state, and local communities to cooperate in supporting U.S. goods overseas. The last point I want to make on this is that in your issue, you'll find some of the key things that we need to focus on as mayors. And one thing I want to mention is an Export Now book, which the mayors will have to take, which I encourage you to make sure you get this Export Now, 5 Keys to Exporting Markets by Frank Levin and Peter Cohan. Both of these authors would have loved to be here, but to no surprise, they're out of the country. They're both out of the country. But both are committed to working with us to really move forward on some of our issues. Now, with those comments, let me lay out our program for today. First, we're going to hear from the Undersecretary of Commerce on International Trade. Secretary Sanchez will come up and give some brief remarks. You all heard from him last January. He talked about how he can help our cities and businesses. Then you'll hear comments from our panel who will bring their own unique perspective to our topic. Following their remarks, we'll be joined again by the Secretary, and then we'll open it up for questions for the audience. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Secretary Sanchez. I had the pleasure of working with him during the Clinton administration, where he served as the Assistant Secretary for Aviation and International Affairs at the United States Department of Transportation. Among other high-profile positions, in addition to his service in government, he has over 15 years of private sector experience. As head of the International Trade Administration, he is the President's point person on doubling our export by the end of 2014. So he'll give us some remarks shortly. Second, you'll hear from the panel, and I want to introduce our panel, who many of you know. We have Mayor Ryback, who's the vice chair. Let's give him a hand. Mayor Ryback has been working hard. We have Teresa Myers, an entrepreneur. Let's give her a hand. She's going to talk about business. And we have Terry. Terry's last name is? Jack. I got to pronounce it right. Thank you. Let's give him a hand. Another entrepreneur from Palatka, Florida. And Seven Heckman from Siemens. Let's give them a hand. We're going to be joined by Mayor Prskwelik, Don Prskwelik. He will probably be here as well to add his take on this. And now we'll hear from the Undersecretary of Commerce. Let's give him a hand as he comes to give brief remarks.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Mayor Brown, thank you very much for that introduction. It's always good to be with you. You know, it's not often that people, usually communities, create great leaders and go off to Washington. I'm happy to say that Washington at least helped do a little bit of the molding, send you back home, and in such a short time has done an outstanding job. I was going to say in my remarks for the city of Jacksonville, but he has gone beyond the city of Jacksonville and has really taken on a leadership role for an issue that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is the role that exports can play in growing jobs in your communities, and he's done this now all over the country. So I want to give you a round of applause for so quickly jumping into this. And by the way, I wholeheartely endorse the book that Mayor Brown mentioned to you, Export Now. It was written by one of my predecessors, former Undersecretary of Commerce, Frank Lavin, who is based now in Hong Kong and helping American companies from all over the United States export, particularly throughout Asia. It's a ton of great information in there, so I wholeheartedly endorse that book as well. And though he's not in the room, I want to give a shout out to Mayor Villaraigosa. Mayor Villaraigosa not only has been an outstanding leader for Los Angeles, but he has taken his leadership skills, like Mayor Brown, nationally. And he too, particularly on this issue that brings us together today, he has been outstanding. And it's been a pleasure to work with him. And although he's not here, let's give him a round of applause and we'll let him know that we did that. I know that Mayor Nutter is the incoming chair, and I very much look forward to working with him, not only on exports, but on his focus, which will be manufacturing. And finally, I'm delighted to be here with such a distinguished group of panelists, and I look forward to the conversation. And finally, let me thank the Conference of Mayors. Is Mayor Diaz in here?
He was.
He just left. Okay. Well, I was going to give him a shout out, but I'll wait till he comes back. You know, in a time full of great challenge, the members of this organization you guys are doing outstanding, outstanding work. And the fact that you're here in this room focusing on how you can help support and promote exports is a testament to how committed you are to not only helping your communities, but indeed helping our country in our economic recovery. And as I start my talk, I want you to imagine a scenario. Let's say that one morning you wake up and you come up with the next big idea. Just for a little while, you're Steve Jobs. And this idea is so big that you are absolutely compelled to invest your time, your life savings, put all your passion into this. This product is so amazing that you want to get it out to the world, so you rent some retail space and you set up to sell your product. But for some reason, your business plan calls for only marketing to 5 people out of every 100 that walk by your store. So essentially, you're just kind of letting 9 or more people just walk away. So the question I would ask is your business, no matter how brilliant that product is that business going to be a success? It's a rhetorical question, but you know the answer. Now, the truth is, if you or members of your business community have an exportable good or an exportable service, and they're not exporting, they're doing the same thing as that scenario. They're missing out on 95% of the world's consumers, because 95% of the world's consumers live outside our borders. They're also missing out on a significant amount of consumer dollars, because roughly 80% of the world's purchasing power is outside our borders. They're missing out on dynamic growth. According to the IMF, about 85% of the world's economic growth through 2015 will be, you guessed it, outside our borders. There you are. I just want to say a great hello to a former leader of this organization and a very, very dear friend of mine, and someone who's also been pushing this topic for many, many years, Mayor Diaz. Now, if you own a business, it's natural that you want more customers, you want access to more purchasing power, you want to have a greater chance to take advantage of incredible growth. If that's what you want, you need to be exporting. There are absolutely tremendous opportunities in the global economy, and American businesses, businesses that are in your communities, need to seize the opportunity. The sad truth, however, is that very few companies do. Approximately 1% of American companies are engaged in exporting. Now, clearly, we can do better. As Undersecretary of Commerce, I have traveled all over the world, and I can tell you that there is great demand for products made in America. And wherever a sale is made abroad, that revenue comes back to a business that's right here at home, many located right in your cities. It's money that can be used to expand a business and hire workers, and in turn, that strengthens your communities and spurs healthy development. So the bottom line is this: exports are good for economic growth. They're good for business. And yes, they are good for your cities. That's why President Obama made increasing exports a top priority early on. In 2010, he launched the National Export Initiative, and he set a goal of doubling exports by the end of 2014. And I'm very proud to say we have worked hard in helping achieve that goal. We've done it through advocacy for individual companies, through export trade promotion programs, working hard with our trade partners to reduce trade barriers that affect American firms having a level playing field abroad. And I'm very happy to report to you today that we've had tremendous success. Last year, U.S. exports reached $2.1 trillion in value. That is an all-time record for the United States. But more importantly, These exports had an impact on the ground. They supported nearly 10 million jobs. That's enough people to fill the rooms in this resort more than 1,000 times over. It's also an increase of 1.2 million jobs since 2009. Now that means that as a result of exports, Americans are able to pay their mortgages, put food on the table, pay student loans. So that's the headline that I want to leave with you today. Exporting isn't about what's happening overseas. It's also about what's happening in your community as a result of exporting. And I want to work with you so that your cities can participate in this dynamic opportunity. Specifically, I and the International Trade Administration want to partner with you to develop tailored export plans in your areas. I want to move your city's businesses to sell their products all over the world. At the Department of Commerce, we have tremendous resources that can support your efforts and the companies in your communities. Specifically, we have a talented group of people in more than 100 cities around the United States and more than 70 countries around the world. With us today is one of our superstars. He is from the Orlando Export Assistance Center, John Ney, and I'd like to recognize John. John, stand up. I get to give speeches all over the world, but he gets down and dirty with companies. He makes sure that they get the deal done. And I'm very proud of him and his colleagues because they really do outstanding work. They know how to navigate through the export process, they know the markets, and they are ready to help the businesses in your communities. They've been doing a great job, not just this year, but for many, many years, helping companies export for the first time, helping other companies export into new markets. And I'm proud to say that with John and my team, we're going to take this work with communities to a new level. It's an effort that I call localizing the National Export Initiative, because we recognize that we can only do so much out of Washington, D.C. There are a lot of things that are happening in your community that we just can't know from the nation's capital. And America is made up of many different communities, each with its own unique characters and opportunities. And regional leaders have a unique view. You bring to the table incredible insight into your respective regions. And we want to work with you to capitalize on that insight. And this is an important effort because cities across America are fueling the national growth of U.S. exports. Metropolitan areas, as Mayor Brown mentioned in his opening remarks, are generating incredible economic activity, and you're absolutely primed to expand exports and increase jobs. So we want to help you realize your full potential in this field. And we are very, very proud to be working with the Brookings Institution to make this happen. We've partnered together in an effort called the Metropolitan Export Initiative. And thus far, we've collaborated with local partners to develop export promotion plans with Mayor Villaraigosa in Los Angeles, in Syracuse, in Portland, and in Minneapolis, with the help of one of our panelists today, Mayor Ryback. Each of these plans that we developed last year is tailored to the strengths and the unique assets and opportunities within this region. And I'm happy to say, and I hope Mayor Ryback will agree, that the response has been overwhelming from the business community, from the political leadership. So we're going to expand this effort to many more cities as we go forward. And I'm very confident that this is going to produce big, big benefits. Localizing the NEI, as we call the National Export Initiative, isn't just a slogan. It really is a strategy to boost U.S. exports in the long term. So working with Brookings and other regional partners, I am absolutely confident that this strategy is going to pay off. Another strategy that I am also confident will pay off is the President's unprecedented commitment to attracting foreign direct investment. So here in the U.S., FDI, foreign direct investment, plays a very crucial role in our economy. And as we think about internationalizing our communities, exporting is a very big component, but attracting investment is another part of it. U.S. subsidiaries of foreign-owned firms, and we have one of those firms with us on the panel today, maintain a stock foreign direct investment position in the United States of $2.3 trillion. These companies employ more than 5 million U.S. workers, which translates into more than $400 billion in wages. So I'm sure all of you know from your own experiences in your cities how important FDI is to a good economy and to your city's future. And we want to do all that we can to see more FDI come to our shores and to your cities. So the President launched Select USA. Select USA is an office that's housed in the Commerce Department. Select USA is the first coordinated U.S. government-wide effort to promote and support business investment in the United States. Working with the headquarters in Washington, D.C., this effort is carried out on the ground through our commerce staff across the world. They spread the word about how desirable it is to invest in the United States. They talk about the hardworking and dedicated workforce, the innovation, the research and development opportunities that go on, and of course, the very strong consumer base that we have. So our group assists potential investors in a number of ways, including helping those who encounter confusion or delays or obstacles while navigating the federal regulatory process. We want more foreign investment to go into cities like yours, and we want to work with you to do everything we can to make it happen. With me here at the conference are representatives from Select USA. I encourage you to reach out to them. If you can't find them, reach out to me. I will connect you to our Select USA staff. And also visit our website, selectusa.gov. I want us to work together on this as well, exporting and attracting investment. Now, I want to talk about two words that, at least in Washington, doesn't seem, these two words don't seem to go together much these days. Working together. Getting parties on both sides of the aisle to cooperate on issues, particularly these days, seems a little challenging. But I can assure you that on occasion it does happen. And I know this because it happened last year when, thanks to President Obama's leadership, 3 trade agreements passed Congress with bipartisan support. And I believe that there was bipartisan support because members of both parties understood that jobs and economic growth should not be a Republican or a Democratic issue. They are American issues. And these trade agreements are going to be very good for our economy. In the months since Congress passed them, two of the trade agreements, Korea and Colombia, have already taken effect. U.S. businesses now have unprecedented access in these 2 very important markets. And later this year, the Panama Trade Agreement will take effect, widening the circle even further. And again, all of this happened because of bipartisan cooperation. So it is in this spirit that I urge Congress to continue to work with President Obama to strengthen our economy. The administration has called on Congress to lift an outdated amendment that would prevent the U.S. from benefiting from Russia's ascension to the WTO, the World Trade Organization. If that amendment is passed, and if that restriction is lifted, U.S. businesses will be able to benefit from lower tariffs and increased access to Russia's rapidly growing sectors. So I urge Congress to take action. And I also join the call for Congress to act on the President's to-do list, which includes rewarding small businesses that create jobs with a 10% tax credit. It includes eliminating the tax incentives that ship jobs overseas so that we can start insourcing and bringing jobs back home. Under the President's leadership, we have had 27 months of private sector growth, resulting in millions of new jobs. But I don't need to tell anybody in this room that we have a long, long way to go. And that's why I urge Congress to work with the President and to take action on these very important issues. We have worked together in the past. We have got to work together now to accelerate the economic recovery. That's why if we work together, we will boost U.S. exports, we will impact jobs, we will improve cities, and our overall economic future. There's no question that the recent years have been difficult. But while markets will always go up and down, the innovation of American entrepreneurs, including two that we have right here on this panel, will always endure. The productivity of American workers will always be strong. And that's why products stamped with Made in America still represent quality and value. So I ask all of you, let us work together to help companies like the two represented here sell their products and services overseas. Mayor Brown, thank you again for letting me be with you. I'm looking forward to the conversation, and I especially look forward to the partnership that we will have with the conference to help more American companies export and take advantage of growth abroad. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for that your kind remarks. And so now I'd like to turn to our panel for some brief remarks. And first, we will have Teresa Myers, CEO of Myers Seth Pumps, a small business from Jacksonville, who will talk about her experience of exporting as a small manufacturing company. Following Teresa will be Terry Greck, Stagecoach Sauces, also from Palaca, Florida, who will talk about exporting a consumer good. The hot sauce that you may see up here is what he is focused on. And from there, we'll have the Vice Chairman of the task force, Mayor Ryback, who will be talking about his own export initiative in Minneapolis, followed by the Honorable Mayor Don Persquelic to talk about his success program on direct foreign investment. And then we'll have the cleanup by Mr. Hackman will be the cleanup from Siemens to really take us home. And let's give Siemens a round of applause for their support on everything we do to make it work. Special thanks to them for supporting our meeting in Jacksonville, Florida last February, and all that they do to help us as we move city forward. And with that, we'll start off with some remarks, some comments by Teresa.
Good morning. My name is Teresa Meyer, CEO of My Set Pumps. I'm very honored to be invited into this meeting today. And also, I have an opportunity to share with you the opportunity about our equipment to export to overseas market. We manufacturing pumps using for construction business and removing water. So next to the electricity and water is a necessity. So this kind of products, we believe that it firmly would be used in any country in the globe. It's not just only in USA, but it would be all over the world. We've already been export to Australia, to New Zealand, to Bahamas, and right now we have our agent working to helping us to export to Caribbean in Panama City. So we have a lot of plan in place. There is many untapped opportunity. Last year I traveled to Africa, to Kenya, and using the Gold Key program, we went to visit 8 different business companies. We went direct to each company, and every one of them expressed that they love to do business with U.S. And I asked them why. I would like to know why, and also the pain why they don't like to do business with another country, especially in China right now. It dominates their market. they say that they love to do business with USA because we have a superior products, and we have a good service and friendly to do business with, and they can trusting us. And also, we be able to provide them parts when the time they need it to repair their equipment. So a lot of reason why they want to do business with us. And also the export plan or to go to their country, it's much easier to using our equipment. And also, they be able to use equipment because the part, make it easy for them to buy the repair parts. Along with the opportunity, of course, we also, as a small company, we're facing a lot of challenging, and I just name a few that the most critical for us. The first thing for us is to find the right agent that we can have a people at local market to understand our equipment, also that to helping the local people that, because the different country, they need different product and different job, they have a different application. And if those sales agents don't have a knowledge about our product, they can sell the product, but it doesn't fit to their need, and that also would not be a good sale or good matching for us. And beyond that, after we make the sale, as I expressed with Mr. Gator, not about the sale alone. We know our product that we be able to make to the sale because we already sell our product to all over United States. We sell our product to our competitor. We compete with them, and they know it, and we do very friendly business with them. But for us to concern is how do we do the service after the sale, because of the trust that they believe in U.S. product, and we don't want to break that trust. So, you know, the language barrier, the cash flow issue, the time frame, because some of the country like Australia, it's 15 hours of difference. So when the time they communicate with us, it's already 15 hours behind of us. So everything we do to them, it have to be a very timely manner. And also the quality, when do we ship the product? Because each country have a different type of requirement, and especially to develop country, the safety issue is sometimes it's much more. I thought that USA have a very great safety program, but when the time we ship the good to Australia, I learned much more that we not know about until we ship the product to them. But then here, the same thing, in Kenya, they love the product, they want the product, but also they don't have a capital investment. And also for us as a small company, how do we have a presence over there? How do we have a human capital that we can hire local people and bring it back to our U.S. because they know their territory, they know their culture, they know the language, they know the job, so that way we can train them in U.S., they know the product knowledge, and then send them back to their own country. But we need the location, the present, because the people don't buy from the picture. People want to feel, to see the product and
Sure.
at their store. So
Thank you.
after that, and they would appreciate that. So that's a few challenge that I got.
Thank you so much. Now we'll hear brief remarks from Terry. Terry, you want to give
Yeah,
a brief remark?
thank y'all for allowing me to come. I'm Terry Gack. I'm the president of Stagecoach Sauces. I started this company back in '91. It's been a dream of 3 generations from my great-great-great-grandfather to put our sauces on the market, and we got some around. And through the Civil Wars, World War I, World War II, and large families, they just couldn't decide to just couldn't afford to put it on the market. So in '91, I decided to release it and put it on the market, and we went through all the FDA regulations and all the compliance, and business has been good, and we didn't know too much about it, but I learned, and I got our products. We're in about we're really strong out in the Midwest in our distribution. I reckon it's because of the Stagecoach label, but we are on the East Coast pretty good too. We're in about 9,000 to 10,000 grocery stores. And then after I got out there a little bit, I had a lot of other companies come to me wanting to know how to do it. And I always believe in helping your fellow man. So we've helped about 90 other companies that we bottle for now get their products on the domestic market. And we go take them through the FDA compliance, label laws, and get everything in compliance. And so a couple of years ago, I decided to pursue about getting our products onto the export market. And the export market is a great thing. When you're dealing with the domestic market, when you make the sale, you got to help them sell it. You got to guarantee the sale. You got to do in-store demo promotions, and you got to guarantee the sales. You got to do slotting fees. But when you do export sales, it's more of a bulk sale. And then they got a group of importers over there that's what they specialize. They know their markets, and we know ours. So we're really excited. We're talking with a company in Costa Rica, and look like they're going to buy some of our products. And they all like American-made products because we carry a current FCE number, and anything made in America, it's regulated, it's clean, it's healthy, and that's really good. So we're looking like we're moving pretty strong into the Costa Rica market, and we're working with a company over in England. And so we got a lot of good things happening, but our focus point now is we're working heavy on exporting, and because there's a lot of great sales out there, and in the U.S. they do so much to help small businesses out. The Department of Commerce and all like that, they're there, and I just think they do such a great job. They make our job easier. The transition between going domestic to export, I think it's going to go really smooth, and I thank y'all for what y'all do.
Thank you, Terry. Now we'll have some remarks by Mayor Ryback, followed by Mayor Don Pasquetta, and then we'll get into the discussion.
Sure. Terry, I think the real reason you guys are so popular in the Midwest is because so much of our food is prepared by Scandinavians who think salt is a major spice. We get it. We got to pump a lot of this on. So send more up. We need a lot of it. I want to do a very quick quiz for the group here. What do the following things have in common? Betty Crocker prints, Post-it notes, Cheerios, Scotch tape, Target stores, pacemakers, the world's leading water filtration systems, and penile implants. What do those all have in common?
They're all in Minneapolis.
All from Minneapolis, exactly. So our products from...
I got it right. There you go.
We fix you at the beginning and the end. I won't get into the details.
He's testing the chair here.
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is each one of our communities has a story to tell about exports. And one of the things that we want to do with this committee is to be able to empower all the mayors to tell the story. We were fortunate in Minneapolis-St. Paul to have Brookings and J.P. Morgan Chase help us by launching this idea of an export initiative at the same time that Mayor Villaraigosa is coming in and really focusing on this idea of having us focused on exports and imports too. So it's a real great time for us all to focus on that. We've learned a lot in this process, and part of what we want to do is to provide a toolkit to mayors to be able to quickly get involved in exports. I mean, like a lot of mayors, I got a lot on my plate. And when do you turn around and get to exports? You know, you've got police on the streets and all these other issues. Well, part of what we want to do is to make that really simple. So one of the things we've begun to look at is coming up with this toolkit that we can simplify it so mayors can take kind of a plug-and-play approach, frankly. Here are 5 steps to getting involved in it. And it's really going to be, we think, around a couple key issues. The first of the 3 real key points is you have to solidify your export team. There are a lot of people in your community who are involved in exports. The challenge is there are a lot of people in your community involved in exports. They're not always talking to each other. So step 1 is to really convene them together. One of the many, many things the Undersecretary has done really well is to begin to get all the federal resources connected together. They came out to Minneapolis, they did a convening. It was really helpful, and so what we want to do is to encourage more of that. The mayor sits in a perfect position to convene all the folks together to bring the federal partners together. As that's being done within this first phase of solidifying the team is also to do a mapping of your assets. when you really think about it, we all have a lot of folks moving around the globe, and that really has to do with which businesses are exporting, what resources are there. The second part of that then is to target the markets. Now, we all could pretty easily mention the BRIC countries as ones where a lot is going on. Pretty logical that China and India have a lot of good things going right now. Brazil has a lot of good things going. But there may be some real niches for the businesses you have that can really grow them. And part of that is to understand really what are the assets in your community and where does that give you a lead. My community has the largest Somali population outside of Mogadishu. That means we have many people who speak Arabic. In a challenged world where a lot of folks can't do business in the Middle East, or in a challenged world where we looked at Africa, maybe the new India or China, the assets we have in Minneapolis include the fact that we have a lot of people who speak multiple African dialects, speak Arabic, and throughout the Mideast and Africa, we can be wildly competitive in a global environment. I think as mayors, too, we have to dig down into that issue of where are the existing relationships. I mean, let's get honest as mayors, your sister cities were not probably grown strategically, were they? I mean, when I first looked at my list, I thought, who the hell got Paris? You know, and there were all these cities that seemed pretty arbitrary and random. But when I really dug down to them, I thought, what's this Harbin, China? Well, Mayor, they gave that to us because it has a similar climate. I'm like, I want Fiji. I don't want a similar climate to Minneapolis. But what was really interesting is Harbin is now being developed as in the northern part of China. Granted, it's near Siberia, but it is where the auto industry in China is beginning to develop. It's a really interesting place. Taking those assets, and those sister cities especially, so random, need to be tied together. The third part is really that idea of then selling it to the world and coming up with what is your global strategy. Trade missions and so many other things are a key part of that. But I think as this committee, we can probably play a deeper role in figuring out ways to tie all those together. So what we want to do is to take this very quick template, bring it back in January to the Mayor's Conference, give it to mayors and have it be just a plug-and-play way that you can move it as the administration, which I hope then will be newly elected, sorry for the commercial, will be then able to really move forward with different communities on that. And the final point is we really want to do this for incoming mayors. So that, for instance, in that new mayor's training we do at the Kennedy School where you've just gotten elected and you've got all these things on your plate, exports is probably job 87 on that list. If we can just put in the hands of a mayor, here are a couple of quick steps to do it. That's a way to get into it. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pasquale?
Thank you, and thank you, Mayor Brown and Rybeck, for your leadership in this important issue. I want to go back and start at the beginning when this country 30 years ago thought it would be wonderful. We turned into some kind of society where I shine your shoes, you cook me dinner, and somebody else sells me a car. It was called a service industry, and some of us fought at that time to keep as much manufacturing as we could. If you don't produce something and sell it to somebody, you can't accumulate wealth. The difference has been it's not hardcore tires, as we used to produce in Akron, but software and a number of other things have come into the equation. So the U.S. Conference of Mayors taking a lead in this issue and the U.S. Commerce Department assisting and partnering is wonderful development that I think we all now realize. Republican, Democrats, liberals, neighborhood organizers, everybody, we need jobs. And this is an important part. And Undersecretary Sanchez used an example, which I was going to use. I didn't know the exact number I was going to use, but he said, if you're only marketing 5 out of 100 people, how successful can your business be? And in a way, what I'm here to talk about is the reverse foreign direct investment. And it's sort of the same thing. There are companies that need to be in the U.S. And some of these arguments, I have to become defensive because I have an 85-year-old mother who still points her finger in my face and tells me I shouldn't be going to these foreign countries because she doesn't quite understand the world we live in. But the world we live in, without the borders that used to be here as well as other places, to prevent business activity, we have fought to tear down so that we could sell, export. But the other side of that is companies who need to come here, and it's not my decision, as I tell people in Akron, whether or not they should, but they are going to come here. And no offense, Joe, but I tell people in Akron, how does it help Akron if every one of those foreign companies go to South Carolina? How does that help Akron? And that's one question that I think you need to start to do. Unfortunately, I should never say that to a mayor, because he's always going to have an answer. But just hypothetically, Joe, I just picked you out. I didn't pick out, like, for instance, Trenton, because Doug would have given a 15-minute answer. But I believe the latest number, and I sort of threw this together, I apologize, I'm going to be fast here because there's some statistics on the show. $270 billion of foreign direct investment coming in this country, and mayors should ask themselves, why not fill in the blank, your city? The way to do that, first of all, and I'm going to give you some tips at the end, is really to work, in my opinion, with your business community. I did not come in to the mayor's office 26 years ago believing that we needed to reach out across the seas. We all had lived through a period of time where everybody chased smokestacks, the big 3,000, 5,000 employers, and that really, employee companies, and that really wasn't successful for a lot of people. 87, I think, % of the growth in any community comes from within. So you certainly have to develop your local business contact system and assistance for business. But other people outside wanting to come to the U.S., you need to identify your strengths and what you can market, your city, your community, your region, and you can do it best with the business community. And I will tell you there's protection there, and this is the first tip. Always wrap yourself when you go across the seas with business people. Take them along, make sure they're good people that you can want to spend a week with. But and you guys all know what I mean about that, mayors I'm talking about. You have an opportunity to have them be the best spokespersons for you as to how hard you work, what you did. The second thing that I mentioned earlier is defining your strengths and target. People go to trade missions or they go to trade shows, and I've worked for the last 22 years, trade shows, and they just go there and they sort of wait for somebody to come there and they go around and meander around talking. We do a targeted effort months before the trade show or the trade mission to identify those companies and get feedback to see which ones are warm leads, which ones really might have some success. And it's vitally important that you do that. Let me give you just a quick statistic. By the way, we tracked, and this is the third tip for mayors, measure. If there's one important thing you have to do is try to make sure you keep track, because I got to tell you, over time you forget that company name and the person that you dealt with, how many jobs. People need to know that. And I learned this about downtowns, and I'm going to make reference to Joe Riley. There is no one in this country that can stand up in front of a group of people and talk about, and I don't mean any offense to this, Joe, but all of the what I call warm and fuzzy reasons why we need to keep downtowns active and vital. There are 28 different things that Joe can say, and he'll bring tears to your eyes. But when I try to say that, first of all, I'm not as good a speaker as Joe, and I don't have that same ability. But one thing I know, I can stand up in front of every group and say, because we finally, after 10 years, measured downtown, and we depend on income tax. It's the most protected bit of public information. So it's harder for us, but we did it. Find a way. I did it by our zip code. Hey, how about just the companies that send things in zip code? I can stand up in front of a group because I used to get it every 2 weeks, a nasty letter about all the mayor cares about is downtown and investing all that money in downtown and building those arenas. But we measured it finally, and I can say that the incremental increase in income tax that is measured on the amount of new jobs pays the equivalent in Akron, in a city that has about 450 cops, the equivalent of the pay and benefits for 120 extra cops that our community would not be able to afford if we did not have the increased investment in downtown and the resulting job increase from 15,000 when I became mayor to 31,000 now. And I want to tell you something, it shuts up the most outspoken advocate. It's the same thing about direct reverse or foreign direct investment. If you can measure and keep track, have somebody do it. It's going to be important at certain time, election time, when they start hammering on you. But I measure the amount of expenditures. I spent in a 10-year period only $78,000 going overseas. and I converted it to dollars of investment by foreign company. For every dollar I spent, we got $3,988 of investment in equipment and machinery, over $170 million of investment just in Akron, and another 120 or 30 in the surrounding neighbors that because there were buildings or something that they needed outside the city of Akron. There's probably, I think we're up to 3,900 jobs or something, but it is important for you to keep track. So measure, wrap yourself in business people, take them with you, let them tell about why it's important, and target. That's the three most significant bits of advice that I can tell you when you start to go out and recruit foreign companies.
Thank you, Mayor. And now we'll have some remarks before we get into the discussion with Mr. Hackman.
Thank you. I'll remain brief. Yeah, Honorable Mayors, once again, on behalf of everyone at Siemens, thank you for the opportunity to serve you as your corporate partner. And with that said, we're one corporate partner. There are many great companies that are represented here as sponsors and in your communities as your partners. From our perspective, there's a tremendous amount of leverage that you have in working with business and corporate partners like Siemens. There is information and resources that resides within large companies that you can leverage to grow your communities, whether it's exports or infrastructure development, that is available if you engage those companies. We as an organization are represented in 190 countries by 400,000 individuals, and I don't say that for any other reason but the ability for us to transfer best practices and share with you what some other communities have done on a global basis. And actually, in working with some of the US mayors, we have been connecting global communities and really trying to align trade relationships that make sense given the specific city and the long-term plans. So there's no solution that we've innovated that wasn't based on feedback. Infrastructure in cities are a tremendous growth area, and we'll have to rely on you to continue innovating and producing here in the US. So we have a little bit over 100 manufacturing bases in the US and growing. We still believe that the US is and will remain the strongest market for Siemens. Highest education of workforce, a commitment top-down to serving companies, foreign companies, protecting intellectual property, and co-investing into education and infrastructure build-out. So from our perspective, this is the country that will continue to grow global commerce. We want to be closely tied to all of you, contribute to the extent that we can. If I say we, it's truly us and our partners, and to some extent our competitors that are already partners of yours. Because a global and an integrated dialogue will accelerate projects and initiatives that are much needed. So again, appreciate the opportunity and look forward to working with you if there are any needs that we can support. Thank you.
All right, thank you all very much for your comments. And now let me start off by asking the first question for the business representative. Teresa, you are both small companies who clearly have great products and are doing some good things. And the question I have is, I know you talked about this earlier, but what's your biggest challenge for your company right now? What do you see keeps you from expanding into the marketplace to compete globally abroad to export your products?
Well, we have a lot of challenge, but the most of challenge we need right now is the human capital.
Human capital.
And then also the market research. That,
Market research, okay.
Because like a different country need different products, and we don't really have enough human capital to invest and send into each country to know and do the market research for us, so that way we make sure we're marketing to the right product to the right country.
Okay. And Terry, I mean, what's your challenge exporting your consumer goods? What do you see?
Well, with our new program that we're working on, it's kind of falling in place. We get a lot of help from our government, and when we need advice, you're there, and there's just I'm on what they call a 24/7 hour a day shift. They're just saying enough of me. And it's going right along. It's moving right along. We're excited. We know we're going to have great success out of it, and it's just going to be some learning curves along the way, but it's something that we know we can achieve.
Sure. So, Mr. Secretary, let me do a follow-up question on that. You know, you got two entrepreneurs here. You know, how can you help Terry and Teresa? What advice would you give them to really participate in some of the strategies that you talked about?
Well, first thing I'm going to do is talk to the president of Stagecoach Sauces to give you a raise. 24/7, that's a lot of work.
Long shift.
I heard Teresa mention that she's already using a number of services from the Department of Commerce. You mentioned the Gold Key service. So let me, if I could, take a minute to explain the Gold Key service. The Gold Key service is a service that our office offers. Our office is the International Trade Administration, and it's a personalized service. It's a fee-based service, but it's a relatively low fee. I think it's about $700 a day for small businesses. And what we'll do is we'll interview you and figure out what you're trying to achieve in a particular market. If you're trying to get to direct customers, then we will put together a list of companies, and we'll call those companies. We'll set up all the interviews for you. All you have to do is get off the airplane and start meeting and talking to people. If, on the other hand, like Teresa mentioned, she's looking for an agent or a distributor, we'll do the research to find the right list of potential agents or distributor for her product and her company. And again, all she has to do is get off the airplane, sit down, and start interviewing and seeing if there's a fit. So that Gold Key service is available to small businesses. And what are the markets you ought to be going to next? And Terry, it sounds like you've been using our services, but we have offices in Central America, and you need to let us know how we can help you if we're not working with you.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Pasquale, you have quite an impressive record in your effort. Can you follow up on that?
Well, I wanted to sort of piggyback on the question about the challenges and problems. One of the things for companies that come here, first is the Homeland Security issue and the problems. I mean, we have a family who picked up their life savings. They had an existing business. Item is the name of the company from Germany. And the husband and wife owners, took their life savings. They still had an operation there, but they moved to Akron to start the company and had problems getting then their daughter-in-law to be able to stay in the country for any length of time. And it's one of the significant problems, I think, in this country. If you look at years past, whether it's the Silicon Valley or other issues, other places, there are issues about people coming here, being educated, and we force them to go back home and they become competitors of ours. So there's a whole issue, huge issue here, when we're talking about foreign attraction and foreign investment and those things that have always helped our country. And when we're talking about illegal immigrants and all the issues that people have, this is an issue when you want business to come here, you have to figure out a way to allow that to happen. The only other thing that I would mention that we find on a regular basis is access to capital has been difficult for the last several years for every small business person. But foreign companies have a more difficult time because every U.S. bank says, show us your last 5 years. And there is no track record in the United States. Many of them have. They're not startup companies per se, but they have a track record in their home country. And many of U.S. banks don't recognize that. And so the access to capital is made more difficult. Even simple things like checking accounts and banking become more difficult for foreign companies. And yet, as you indicated, the president has talked about how important this is, the reverse investment. Come to the United States rather than Canada, Mexico, or other places. Come here, set up operations. We need to assist them in some of those details. And I know the Commerce Department has gone way beyond anything that I've seen in the last 20-some years. But those are some additional steps we need to really work on.
Mayor Ryback, you mentioned the need for metro areas to draw on all the key stakeholders, the business community, the educational institutions, labor, all of those who have an interest to develop a strategy. Can you give us an example on how your city is engaged in that process to help our colleagues?
Sure. First off, it's simply to call those groups together, and then also we worked with the Commerce Department to actually have a forum where folks came forward. But part of it is also the more informal networks. You can take 3 stories of Target's headquarters in Minneapolis, and it's filled with people from India who come for 2 years to do programming, and then they go back. And theoretically, we are training an amazing ambassador crew that's going back and doing that. The University of Minnesota has educated more Chinese students in its history than any other American university. And we have many stories of people going back to China and now being a great outpost for us. So getting what we call your alumni association together is something that's really interesting. What are you doing with people who are now going back to other countries? But I want to underscore the mayor's point too. Post 9/11 America has become dramatically harder to do business in because of all of our homeland security issues. God knows we understand them, but the problem is, like in my trip to China, I was just inundated with people talking about visa reform, that it's one of the huge problems we have. We have another big challenge that if so many more engineers are being trained in India or China, one of the things we can do is keep them at our American universities and then have them working here in this country. These are all complicated issues, but I think this task force and this collection of mayors could really advocate more of this, because dropping those walls is not only, I think, the right thing to do, but very much in our economic self-interest.
Mr. Secretary, you want to follow up on that, respond to a couple of those things?
I do. Mayor Plusquillic, did I say that correctly? It's close enough. Close enough. Thank you. You raised a very good point, and Mayor Ryback, you mentioned as well that I probably within weeks of joining the Department of Commerce, may not even taken weeks, one of the biggest complaints I heard from American businesses was the issue of visas. Right. And it came in all kinds of different flavors. It came from companies like yours, Teresa, that made a sale and needed to bring the company folks over here to train on equipment.
Yes.
Or you might have a distributor that you want to train, and they had trouble with visas. It may have been a company like Siemens or a family like the German family that you mentioned. So President Obama has really pushed the State Department to work harder on taking a look at how we do the visa process. And we, believe it or not, we have made improvements over the last 2.5 years. The speed at which visas are being processed is much quicker, particularly in emerging markets like China and Brazil, and we're going to continue to push. And this is both on the business side with manufacturing, but it's also important in tourism. Tourism is increasingly an important part of our economy. I certainly don't need to tell people from Florida that, because it's a hugely important part of our business. And the President specifically directed the State Department on visa processing in Brazil and in China, and we can already see dramatic results. So one thing I would say to the mayors is you should feel free to call us, the Department of Commerce. Although it's not our direct responsibility, we've developed a very good working relationship with our colleagues at the State Department. And when you have a company that's legitimately doing business and trying to bring somebody here and they're having problems, we're happy to get involved and try to expedite that.
So let me do this. So we're going to have, I want Mr. Hackman to follow up on, I know, one of the questions, and also want to get your sense on the U.S. ports. What are we going to need to do to remain competitive in the marketplace, to compete globally as you see things change? And then after him, we'll open it up for some questions.
Yeah, as a follow-up to Teresa's challenges in attracting qualified workforce, and with that visas, I mean, we believe that we really need to invest in and invest early on into education, because we can't trust that the visa issue will remain consistent. So working with cities, and there are many great examples where, you know, we work with the school level, high school level, and then community colleges to bring apprenticeship programs into cities. Any project that we have the opportunity to develop has to have a workforce development component where skills can be transferred and careers can be started long term. So that's one aspect. During the recession, we had 3,000 technical jobs that we couldn't fill due to a gap in skill sets. And if it wasn't for the returning veterans, highly trained individuals, we would have had tremendous problems. So again, the U.S. served us there. In terms of ports, looking at specific areas, and we talked a little bit about what you want to become or what resides within a city or in a metropolitan marketplace is really where we believe the answer lays. Matching that skill set or that marketplace with the right trading partners is important. In other words, you may not become the same as Charleston is. So understanding what you want to become long-term is what we look at. And if you look at some of the growth rates of the U.S. ports, Canadian ports, and Mexican ports, it's not the large ports that we've discussed over the past 2 meetings, but smaller ports that have decided what they want to become, that have double-digit growth rates in the U.S. So, and then I just have to say, public-private partnerships will certainly accelerate some of the required infrastructure build-out and growth that we're all hoping for.
Give me a second. I know you want to respond, then we'll open it up for questions.
Very quickly on the visa issues, and quite frankly, on anything that you need from the Department of Commerce. In many of your communities, we have export assistance centers. If for some reason you can't find a person in your office, I want to recognize our Director of State and Local Government who's here, who's a tremendous advocate for you guys. He is in my office weekly, making sure that we're doing everything we can to support cities, counties, and state government, and that's William Ramos. William, can you stand up? So I wanted to recognize him, but I also want to make him a target. So you guys make sure to call on him. I also want to recognize my Director of Legislative Affairs, who works very closely with William, and that's Laura Marquez, and she's also available to help you. The other point I want to make, this really goes to Mayor Rybeck. I'm sorry?
Go ahead. No.
Mayor Rybeck talked about convening, as mayors, convening all the assets that you have in your community for an export promotion strategy. I just want to point out 2 very important things that may not readily appear as exports. That's education and tourism. I took an education trade mission to Indonesia and Vietnam last year and took 56 colleges and universities. I'm sure many are from your communities. They saw 10,000 students. And that's an export. When those students come here to study, they're spending money from their countries here. So you get an immediate bang for your buck in that. But in addition to that, what the mayor said is that you also develop links with other parts of the world that can be very valuable in your long-term strategies for export promotion and for foreign direct investment. And then tourism, international tourists spend more than we do. So when one of us go from one city to the other, we're a little cheap. But international tourists, they spend anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 a day, or I'm sorry, $3,000 to $5,000 per visit. I'm sure some of them spend $3,000 to $5,000 a day. But they're terrific, and we're working very hard to promote international tourism and look forward to working with you on both of those key components to your export promotion strategy.
Okay, with that, we're going to open it up for questions. I see 1, 2, 3. So you're first. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Terry Gillen from the City of Philadelphia. Just a quick question for the Commerce folks. I love this idea of a toolbox. One tool that we would love to have in Philadelphia is export data by city. The data seems to be by region, and it would be great if we could get it by city because then we can manage it better. So thanks.
I don't disagree with you. We don't control that data. Our brethren at the Census Bureau does, but I'm happy to continue to lobby them. And I can't tell you to lobby Congress, but I can absolutely tell you to lobby the Census Bureau and tell them what would be helpful to you.
Yes.
Jim Keeson, Mayor of Coral Gables. Before I was mayor, I was a U.S. ambassador and career foreign service officer for 40 years in 15 countries, and I ran export promotion out of Milan, Italy. So I have some familiarity with this. Suggestion, every year there are meetings of deputy chiefs of mission and ambassadors in Washington. To my my knowledge, we've never brought mayors to talk with
Great idea.
ambassadors who are the key people on their country teams. They know the market, they can solve your visa problems, they have people on their staff who can find your distributors, talk about non-tariff barriers. The great expertise, Commerce Department is in most of our embassies, not all of them, but the country team can really provide the information you need, and a pitch for more money for the Foreign Commercial Service.
Great idea, Mayor. We'll take
Chairman?
you up on that idea.
Mr. Chairman, we actually hosted from, I don't know, 11 different consulate generals' offices in the Midwest. They were located in Chicago. We hosted them in Akron. So it's the same thing in reverse, looking at what we have, and we've had 3 follow-up missions just in the last 6 weeks because of those meetings.
Wow. Okay.
Question for the panel. Those of you mayors who were successful with either foreign investment or export, did you have official sister city relationships with the communities? We get asked all the time, as you know, Mayor, to be a sister city. I think it's more because of the Packers. I'm from Green Bay.
Right.
And people ask us to do that, and then I wanted to talk about the small business, getting paid. Just comment on getting the money once you form the relationship and sold the product. Was there a bank that you would recommend or a system you would recommend? Because a small business, $3, $4, $5 million business can't risk losing a sale of, 10% of the sales on foreign investment. So I'd like you to comment on getting the money and the mayors to comment on those.
So,
Well, historically, people have asked us a lot, but since the Packers beat the Vikings this year, nobody asked. No, yeah,
You mentioned Super Bowl rings in your.
yeah, go back. Put on your cheese hat and we'll get talking here. So, all right, anyways, the thing that is really important for us is that we've really tried to get much more strategic with our sister cities. In some cases, there have been example, Uppsala, Sweden, we really looked at really terrific value. In some cases, frankly, there isn't. So what we're trying to do is to really go back to that point about where is our Silk Road, define where we have the best chance of success, and develop new sister cities there. And so I think it's one of the biggest things that we do as mayors, and the sister city partnerships are primarily ceremonial in beginning. They develop better. And I think us and a relationship with the Sister City Association, which was in Jacksonville, to get more strategic, I think is one of the exciting things we can do as this.
Mayor Pasquale.
I agree, and I think our history has been similar to most cities. They get into the relationship. There's no real recognition of business. The only thing I will tell you, Germany is a great example that I'll continue to use. We have a sister city in Chemnitz, and it's a former East German city that had real problems. They had a similar history of machining and manufacturing. It's about 2 hours north of Prague. But the idea when we meet with an individual business person that we've made a commitment to a sister city relationship helps us, even if the company's from Hamburg or Hanover or Dusseldorf. So I think the idea from across the sea that the public official is committed to doing something with that country really does help. We have $500,000 invested in an incubator, city money, in Israel. And the deal is when they come out of that incubator, they have to come to Akron, and it's a great relationship that has helped us forge better relationships with our business community, business to business. But I want to give you one other idea that we've used, and this comes out of Finland. They're second to Israel in the world of investment in small startup companies, people with ideas before they even have the actual company in place. And their focus is on biomedical. We have created with them, and we've used several different words for this, but a technology bridge, a small business bridge linking up our award-winning incubator, which we now call a business accelerator, thinking that whether you're a small business or a foreign company coming in, we're going to help your business accelerate your growth, not just incubate you. But some cities, and Helsinki was one, said our people do not like signing these agreements, these formal things with sister city and all that. And I think we have more of a problem here than other places for having 280 sister cities. It might be nice for a lot of reasons, But there's another kind of relationship that you can call it, so your business community is linked. We linked up our incubators. So we are encouraging our business, if they have an interest in that region, to locate in Chemnitz or in Helsinki. And so you can do something that isn't a sister city and with all that means. And yet, I still think those relationships help in the long run.
Okay.
My name is Mike Falcon. I'm managing principal of Bakerman Urban Strategies, better known as Mayor Palmer's younger brother. And I'd like to make both a suggestion and ask a question to the Commerce Secretary. In one of the programs that's about to expire that's very useful for foreign direct investment is the EB-5 program. In fact, the Metro Economics Committee this afternoon is going to consider a resolution from the U.S. Conference to expand that program. What I'd like to suggest is that the mayors consider utilizing that program, if it is extended, as a kind of tip of the spear for the foreign direct investment. Use Mayor Pistorius' example of the German company that came in, made investments, and then they couldn't get their daughter a visa. That you could use those investments if the cities can take control of that and shape the program themselves rather than rely simply on the regional centers that aggregate that capital to do exactly that kind of problem and to stimulate foreign direct investment. Moreover, not just to bring in capital for American-based investment as financing, but to induce other companies to come in using EB-5 capital. So that's a suggestion you might want to consider. And my question has the Department of Commerce gotten into this in a way to kind of administer those programs or utilize them in that way? And what, if anything, could you do to help get the bill extended?
It's a good commentary. For those of you that don't know about EB-5, it's an immigration vehicle that really facilitates investment, particularly from small, potentially small investments or small companies. And this is a little out of our lane. It's not administered by the Department of Commerce, but I have instructed my staff at Select USA to look and see how we can be helpful, make sure that we're involved in the interagency process as we look at EB-5 as a government. Could I comment, Mayor Brown, on the question that was asked by the mayor of Green Bay? By the way, that was my first team that I rooted for when I was 6 years old.
The Packers.
Well, now I root for the Buccaneers because I'm a native of Tampa. But I wanted to comment on financing. My colleague, the chairman of the XM Bank, says he's in the sleep business. First time I heard him say that, I didn't quite understand what he was talking about. But the XM Bank provides direct loans and, more often than not, loan guarantees to businesses that sell abroad. And he has a very robust small and medium-sized company program to help small and medium-sized companies make sure that they're going to get paid, particularly through their loan guarantee program. They partner with banks around the country. The banks make the loan, and the XM Bank guarantees it. SBA also has a program specifically geared to exporting for small businesses. And we're happy through our UZX centers and directly in Washington to connect your offices and your businesses with our colleagues at SBA and at the XM Bank.
So, next question. I also want to acknowledge that Paul Anderson in the back. Paul Anderson, who is the president and CEO of Jacksport and has been very helpful with the U.S. Conference of Mayors and the National Port Association, helping us work together to really accelerate our port strategy and played a major role in our national meeting in Jacksonville. Let's give him a hand for his leadership in helping us bridge the gap as we move forward. No other question? Paul, you want to make a comment before we finish?
Thank you for your continued interest on behalf of the American Association of Port Authorities, and I'm here representing Mayor for the continued leadership of the conference and the 360-odd members of our organization for the continuing to work with you strategically.
Thank you.
Could I mention Doug Palmer again? I get a free beer every time I mention it. No speech. It wasn't an introduction.
Well, any more comments from the panel? Well, it's 12:30, so we're going to wrap it. I want to thank everyone. Let's give the panel a round of applause for their participation.